Chairman Hooks. I'm sure he gives an aye. All right.
Aye, Mike.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Howard, I think somebody else is sitting in for him today.
I'm here. Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Commissioner Hunt. General Hunt, or your representative.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Julian.
Aye.
Commissioner Little, or the DOT representative.
Aye.
Commissioner McCormick. Chief McCormick.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Nicholson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schermeyer. Commissioner Schermeyer. All right. I say aye as a commissioner. Commissioner Staley.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson. Chief Maria Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Weatherington
Aye.
and Commissioner Yossi.
Aye.
I think we have enough for the motion to pass. The motion passes. All right, we're going to move into new business with the Isaac update. Sack Brian Neal from the Isaac. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll just report during this last quarter that Isaac received 1,043 requests for assistance in suspicious activity reporting. In beta, we took on 3 new cases, which also included 2 requests for service that did not require a full investigation and 6 suspicious activity reports with that. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. During this time period, our operations included continuing to support emergency management with background checks for medical volunteers. We continue to monitor appropriately for civil unrest as we continue to deal with that as it continues on through this quarter as well. And we are currently and have been working several strategic projects that are requiring multi-jurisdictional to include other states. So it should be something of value. We hope that we'll be able to report on in the future. Next slide, please. During this period, we were able to provide a lot of training virtually to our analysts and our investigators, TFOs here assigned to Isaac. You can see we've provided intelligence training, flow certification training, and we were able to also send a few analysts through an FBI training course. We also attended the National Fusion Center Association training, which lasted 4 weeks, and completed that satisfactorily. Next slide, please. And as always, at the end, I like to provide the significant days throughout our history. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And sir, that completes my report.
All right, thank you, Brian. Much appreciated, sir. Okay, now we're going to move on to a COVID update for our COVID response. Today is the 403rd day of the State Emergency Operations Team activation for the COVID response. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think that's day 37 of year 2, maybe day 38. It's been a long time, but the team is still up and rolling hard. We have 96 counties currently with a state of emergency, 22 county emergency operations centers that are still operational. Our vaccine ops, we've got nearly 6 million vaccinations that have been provided statewide. And actually, I can update this. I mean, is a little bit, I think there's what I heard this morning on Unified Command meeting. We're about 46, 47% of everybody in the state that's eligible having at least one shot, which is close to, we're getting close to 50% of the people. So that's a good deal. And we really need to keep pushing hard there. All adults who want to get a shot, groups 1 through 5, are eligible. So we're excited about that. All right, next slide, please. And was a national pause on the administration of J&J. Y'all know about that. They're evaluating the cases of where people, got rare blood clots. Basically, women received it, and there was one death. So we have paused that in accordance to the guidance, and we're waiting on CDC and FDA guidance. I can tell you that we don't anticipate that for at least another couple of weeks. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccinations are ongoing. Next slide. Right. Really happy to talk to you about the Greensboro Community Vaccination Center, federally supported. Got about 130 Air Force personnel, got about generally around 50 National Guard personnel. We have public health, emergency management, volunteers, forest service. I mean, you name it. We've got them out there. Private sector is participating. This is very exciting because what this is this is the whole of community, everybody working together. And you talk about a well-oiled machine. This place is a national model. We've had other states come and look at it. I got a text today from the Office of Recovery, Response and Recovery Administrator up at FEMA in Washington to tell us, he told me personally that he wished that all 56 states were operating like the one in our state. So just want to say I'm super proud of all the people that are out there. I'm proud of Unified Command made up of Dennis Hancock, Paris from Emergency Management, Paris Penny from Public Health, and Jerry Haney from FEMA, plus our phenomenal DOD partners, the National Guard and the Air Force. Next slide, please. And before I go on, let me just tell you, there's been over 110,000 vaccinations given there, and we're having a celebration on Monday with a big cake. So we also have a big operation that with vaccine personnel surge. As you know, a lot of the local health departments, the counties need assistance. So currently, there's 1,157 personnel on scene in 83 different counties. And what they're doing is they're providing everything from administrative support to enter into the coronavirus management system known as CVMS. That's where all the info is captured, all the demographics, the data. And we also have, there's like right now, there's 20 National Guard vaccination teams that are actually out there providing vaccinations. And I think they have 38 admin support teams, plus the folks they have at the Greensboro site. But you have a lot of public health. We have contractors, Civil Air Patrol. Again, it's whole of community. Next slide, please. Here, I was just talking about the National Guard, and they've been our battle buddies from the beginning. They've been supporting food banks, vaccination sites. providing immunizations, admin support, all that stuff. Testing, they did really fantastic job with testing in our prison system. So we appreciate them, and they come out of our communities, and they have the dual mission of overseas and right here in our state. Next slide, please. So we still were working with congregate sheltering, and what that means is when people could be homeless, could be folks that come into contact closely with folks that have COVID-19 and they don't want to go back to their homes. And so we work with these places to make sure that we can have hotels where people can basically be isolated or quarantined for COVID. Next slide, please. So we also, you can get up to $9,000 for funeral assistance now. That just started this week. And I can tell you that FEMA was overwhelmed, and basically their call center shut down. So they're working with that right now. But there's the number right there. If you know someone who had someone die from COVID and they need assistance. Now, this isn't for everybody. If folks had insurance or something like that, I mean, you're not going to be able to get this. So this is to help the people that are less fortunate than most of the people on this WebEx. Next slide, please. So we have a big public assistance program for emergency protective measures, to help paying for the cost for basically buying everything from buying PPE to providing for operations of the EOC, for screening operations, you name it. And so right now it's up to about $450 million. The economic injury disaster loans, we've got over 93,000 applications approved in North Carolina for over almost $4.5 billion. And so advances are over almost 470 million. Next slide, please. And that completes my brief. Pending any questions, are there any questions for me at this time? Thank you for your time. And at this time, what I'd like to do is turn it over to the Central Branch Manager for North Carolina Emergency Management, Dennis Hancock. Dennis has been doing a phenomenal job for us out there, along with his teammates. And he's going to give us a briefing on the Community Vaccination Center over in Greensboro. Dennis, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you about the CVC here in Greensboro Community Vaccination Center. I will say that while our counties and their office have efforts towards vaccination, probably are carrying the bulk of that load.
Dennis, can I stop you
Yes,
there?
sir.
You're very garbled. I don't know if you can dial back in on a telephone or what, but
Can you hear me now, sir? Can you hear me better now?
Not so much. I mean, we can understand you, but it's
Okay, sir, is that better?
not really, but go ahead. Go ahead and
Okay.
drive on.
I don't know
I
what's
can hear
happening. It was,
I can hear you better now.
okay, good enough. Apologies for that. And good morning again. As I was saying, while our counties are carrying the bulk of the overall numbers of shots in arms, the CVC here in Greensboro is unique in that it is the only state-run and federally supported site in the state. We began site build out here on March the 1st and started vaccinating members of the public on March the 9th. Currently, our operations are scheduled to conclude on May the 4th, followed by the regular demobilization process. However, with the pause in availability of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we have requested and are evaluating the possibilities with regards to extending operations here a few more weeks to get even more of those shots in arms. Next slide, please, Corey. And our objectives here, Of course, shots in arms is the primary objective, but in order to do that, we have to make sure that our staff performing the clinical operations and the patients receiving the shots are safe, secure, and supported. An enormous amount of work has gone into making sure that the site is accessible by everyone working here and those wishing to be vaccinated. We have bilingual English and Spanish speakers on site daily, American Sign Language translation services available by iPad, and a language line phone service that covers 170 different languages. We also have extensive signage at the site in English and Spanish and other translation tools available. Wheelchairs and mobility assistance staff are on site daily, and accessibility was planned for day one of our build out. Special thanks to NCEM's Human Services Branch and the DHHS divisions who assisted with this mission critical effort. They really did a phenomenal job and made sure that the accommodations are just here. It's not something we had to provide or figure out once we started. We planned for it from day one again. Our outreach to historically marginalized populations was performed primarily by DHHS through their extensive network of partners, including targeted communications to community groups, faith-based organizations, and through other established means. The Spanish-speaking radio and broadcast media outlets were leveraged to reach the Latinx populations, and the results have been very positive from all of those efforts. Excuse me. Our MO here is pretty basic. We're going to do it right today and find a way to do it better tomorrow. So when we notice an opportunity for improvement, we discuss the matter, plan the improvement, communicate that improvement, and then implement it. Anything that's staff or patient safety sensitive is always our number one priority, and we make sure we take immediate corrective action when those things are noted. Next slide, please, Corey. Okay, just for a quick ConOps overview, the CVC hub site, and that's what we refer to the clinics here in Greensboro as, is the hub. It's a hybrid indoor and outdoor clinic that operates 7 days a week with patient appointments running from 8 a.m. through 7 p.m. Staff are on site from roughly 6 a.m. till about 8:30 p.m. Next slide, please, Corey. For our indoor clinic layout, the indoor clinic is comprised of a screening and check-in station, 12 registration stations, a waiting area, 3 vaccination pods with flex area for a 4th, a pharmacy, and then a coordination center that includes the incident management team area and areas for our logistical support functions. Next slide, please. The outdoor clinic is comprised of 4 screening and check-in stations, 4 registration lanes, 6 shot lanes as we call them. There's a communications unit, extensive signage, staff support tents, and a media access point out there. Now, the process for patients is nearly identical inside and outside. The major exception, of course, is that outdoor clinic patients remain in their vehicles and they drive through versus walking. Patients will present to the check-in point and they're guided by signage as well as information that they received when they scheduled their appointments. They have their temperature taken. They're asked disqualifying questions to determine if they're still eligible to receive a vaccination, and then their appointment's verified. After that, the patients move to the registration area, whether inside or outside, where their information is verified in the state's CVMS system. They're then marshaled into a pod or into a shot lane. Once they're there, they're briefed, they're vaccinated. The data on the vaccine they received is entered into CVMS, and they're observed for 15 or 30 minutes as applicable. The clinical staff that are there giving the shots manage the majority of the untoward reactions that we've seen. The bulk of those have been simply anxiety related to getting a shot. However, in rare instances where we have seen other issues, we have EMS units on scene, both inside and outside, that have taken care of those people needing further care or transport. We're real proud of our in and out times for patients, which have averaged between 20 and 30 minutes, and that includes the typical 15-minute wait time. Next slide, please, Corey. As far as site selection and upfit, the site here was selected primarily for its close proximity to multiple low SVI zip codes. The SVI is the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, as you can see there on the slide with the URL. So that was a primary driver, and while we came here to Greensboro, it put us close to where we wanted to be with relation to reaching the public we wanted to reach with this effort. The roughly 10-day build-out period for the site may seem kind of slow. The space had been vacant for roughly 6 years, but during that time, a lot of work happened. We had extensive cleaning, fire alarm work, sprinkler work, HVAC, general electrical and backup generator work, plumbing, and a lot of light construction was all performed inside, while tents, storage containers, mobile offices, and generators were placed outside. All of that is in addition to the placement of the medical, IT, supply, and security equipment necessary to run the site. Next slide, please, Corey. I know this is a busy slide, but as everybody can see and as we all know, the people that are here and their collective centuries of education and experience are what make this possible. I'm pretty sure that I've missed a few agencies that have helped, but everybody here on the management team makes it a point to tell each individual person each day how much they're appreciated. I want to give some special recognition to Guilford County and the city of Greensboro for their assistance in making this possible. We're using Guilford County's scheduling system, and the city of Greensboro, particularly their USAR task force, have provided a lot of the heavy lifting and muscle for our logistics section, and we absolutely couldn't do it without them. I'd also like to recognize the Department of Community Corrections and the State Highway Patrol for keeping us all safe and the site secure 24 hours a day. We have over 500 local, state, federal, and private sector workers badged into the hub site here, with about 275 working per day. A number of those 500 badges were set up personnel who were here when we stood up and will be here to demobilize. But I think the exact last count as of yesterday was about 519 badges. But again, it takes about 275 folks a day to make this well-oiled machine, as the director referenced, work. Next slide, please, boy. Okay, for site management, the facility is managed by an overhead team, and we use the incident command system to do that. It's led by 4 unified commanders, again, from the North Carolina National Guard, NCDHHS, FEMA, and North Carolina Emergency Management. We have a daily planning cycle, and we've integrated military and civilian subject matter experts into our operations section to ensure solid communication and unity of effort. Comprehensive emergency and security plans are in place that complement the plans that the mall already had. Our facility safety officer meets with mall security daily, and we've established strong links with local city and county law enforcement. Multiple members of our incident management team monitor CCTV cameras that are inside and outside in our clinics on displays, laptops, and mobile devices daily. Our weather threats are monitored by NCM's meteorologist and the National Weather Service Raleigh. Next slide, please, Corey. The picture of our org chart. I apologize if that's a little small on your screen, but with 200 plus people working, it gets a little busy. I do want to note that this chart doesn't account for every single person individually. Some of our groups and pods may have 10 to 15 or even more people in them. And the bulk of our military service members are on shifts, making sure they have sufficient downtime for both patient and provider safety. We don't want anyone unsafe as they're given these vaccinations. Next slide, please, Corey. A few things you really can't see from the pictures shown so far, and that I've probably only briefly mentioned. In addition to the hub site here in Greensboro, we have what we call spoke operations that are in Forsyth and Alamance counties, one in Forsyth at Winston-Salem State University and 2 in Alamance County, one at the Gate City Dream Center and another on Eric Lane. They've accounted for what I believe this morning was approaching close to 20,000 vaccinations at those 3 sites. Again, the extensive accessibility planning, a lot went into that, and I really can't overstate how thankful I am for all the work and expertise that was applied there. The on-site patient counseling and education services are very noteworthy. The Department of Public Health has the public health nurses and other staff here that provide that to our patients in the indoor and outdoor clinics. Whether it's about vaccinations or other health-related matters, you either get the information and counseling you need here, or they make sure that you're connected with those services wherever the patient lives. We do have a very robust wireless network that was built to support our operations here, and it covers both our indoor and outdoor clinics. It's quite a sight to see all of that going in for somebody who's not a tech guy. We also have a couple of FM transmitters on site in our communications unit that are broadcasting directions to the incoming public in both Spanish and English. If we have an emergency like a weather situation that necessitates the shutdown of the outdoor clinic, we have special messages we broadcast in FM in both languages for that also. Our ground support unit out here is really phenomenal. They push cars out of the way. They make sure they have enough fuel to get down the road to a gas station. They jump start them, and they just generally keep the traffic moving outside for us. The site itself has been added in Google and on Waze, if you're familiar with that application, to help our clients find the clinic. There's pretty extensive telematic monitoring of the critical vaccine freezers and refrigerator in our pharmacy. If there's a temperature fluctuation or a power issue with either of those, members of the incident management team are notified remotely. And last but certainly not least, Isaac and NCM's 24-hour watch are doing a lot of intelligence monitoring for us, both related to the geography here, this site in particular, and vaccination sites in the state. And we're really thankful for their remote and invisible assistance. Next slide, please, Corey. Okay, these results were as of midnight on the 13th, and I think I put the 14th on the slide by accident. Of most note there are our metrics relating to ethnicity and race. However, I can tell you that as of just a couple of hours ago, our total combined vaccinations given so far is at 114,825. That's 19,481 administered at the spoke sites and 95,344 administered at the hub. Something else the team is exceptionally proud of is that throughout those 114,825 vaccinations, we have had a total waste count of 30 doses. So that's 30 doses that we couldn't find an arm to put in. Okay. That's phenomenal if you know anything about the data with relation to vaccination sites. In addition to that, unfortunately, we have lost 260 doses to faulty equipment, bad syringes, bad needles. We've had 255 doses lost because there were only 5 doses in a vial when there's supposed to be 6. Those not so good sounding numbers said, we also have gained 397 seventh doses out of the vials. So we're supposed to have 6, and in 397 cases, we've had a 7th. That puts our grand balance at 148 doses less than we probably could have had here were all things perfect. But looking at state and national numbers, everyone who knows these things much better than me says this is exceptional. And I can for sure tell you that the team out here is absolutely that exceptional. Next slide, please, Corey. Okay, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Please let me know if you have any questions, and my contact info is right there if you have any questions in the future. So with that, sir, that concludes my brief, pending any questions.
Do we have any questions for Dennis? I'd just like to double down again and say what a phenomenal operation that is. I saw the building at the beginning, and again, he said it was, he told y'all that it was vacant for 6 years. And you can imagine infrastructure that's vacant for 6 years and what it looks like. I'll also mention, just like he said, there was no IT infrastructure in there. They had to come in and put it in. And so a lot of work had to go in there. They also had to, we have our SWIC, our statewide interoperability coordinator, Greg Hauser, working out all the communications so that people can talk to each other via radios. I mean, just so much work that goes into this, and so many dedicated staff. Amazing work by all of them. And I have to share this too. When they meet, like he says, they will go over. They use a Forest Service guy as the plans chief, and so what they'll do is they'll review 24, 48, 72 hours items that they need to be working on, and they're constantly tweaking the product to make it a better operation. and just they're professionals. I mean, that's what I have to say, from public health to the National Guard to the Air Force to forest, all of them. I mean, just outstanding. And so logistics has been a big part of this. IT, we appreciate all of them. Oh, and I got to say, Urban Search and Rescue Team Task Force 6 out of Greensboro has been there since the beginning. And like Dennis was talking about, Guilford County have been an amazing host for us in the city of Greensboro. I also want to mention too, since we're still talking about vaccinations, that we have our operations section under the lead of Justin Graney, who's he's our hazmat guy. He's been working with the UNC system and DHHS to set up vaccination clinics. And basically the UNC system has just about all of their schools involved with vaccination clinics, and they're up to over 140,000 vaccinations as of today. And so, I mean, everybody from Elizabeth City State University all the way out to Appalachian, I mean, and all the schools in between, they're doing a phenomenal job. Justin's doing a great job with our public health partners and the UNC system led by Norma Houston. All right. We next
Mike,
have, yes, sir.
let me get in real quick, just briefly. Dennis, thank you for the great rollout and brief for the commission. And I want to foot stomp what Mike has said out there. Tremendous operations all around the state. And so very proud of it. And for other viewers who haven't been accustomed to the work of the commission and the work in our areas for COVID response, this is exactly what we talk about and what we mean by a whole of community, whole of government approach. It takes everybody playing their part. It takes everybody coming together, not only assembling a team of great individuals and leaders, but coming together and forming a great team. And we've done that. And I think we've been recognized nationally for that. I've had an opportunity to meet with some national leaders over the last couple of weeks and talk about what we have here in North Carolina with Team North Carolina. And that's not just the state entities, that's all of us collectively. I do, while I compliment all of us on the work that is ongoing, I do want to issue another challenge to us, as I'm always apt to do. We must overcome vaccine hesitancy in our own professions, whether it's public safety, throughout the whole gamut of whatever that may mean to folks, or whether it's public health, military service, all of it's tied together. We have to be ambassadors as CERT leaders and other members that participate in this great noble mission. Our charge is to save and sustain lives. And so we must get the word out to our employees and our staff members and be true ambassadors for good health so that we can protect our 10.4 million people in North Carolina and all that pass through here. And so with that, I want to thank you all for the great work. And again, thank you, Dennis, for the great briefing.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir. Thank you.
Secretary.
Glad to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And loud and clear on your message about vaccine hesitancy. Even though we're, closing in on 50% with at least one shot, that means that there's at least 50% out there that have had no shots. And so that is something that we all have to focus on. So those comments are most appreciated. All right, with that, we're going to move on to an Encore Hurricane Matthew and Florence rebuild update. And I believe we have Chief Operating Officer Laura Hogshead. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Excellent. I'm excited to be with you this morning. Thank you very much for letting me join you and give you a quick update on everything that the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency has been up to. So if we can move to the next slide, I'm going to try to do this pretty efficiently. And the first thing that I thought might be useful is to go through the timeline. It seems like about 1,000 years since last year. So I'm not sure if you're feeling confused by the years, but I thought it was helpful to go back to this because the years are quite running together. So obviously October of 2016, Hurricane Matthew hits North Carolina, and we received our funding, our community development block grant for disaster recovery funds in May of 2017. We opened our application period for those funds in November of 2017, and we're working on what we're now calling phase 1 of the applications. Phase 1 is Hurricane Matthew. Then, of course, hurricane. So Hurricane Florence hits in September of 2018, and the governor and the legislature decided that we needed an office dedicated to spending these funds, and the Office of Recovery and Resiliency was created in October of 2018. It took HUD 500 days to give us the Hurricane Florence money, so I just want to keep that in context. We did not get the Hurricane Florence money until June of 2020. So June of 2020, not an optimal time to be setting up a new application period, but we had to do it. And we know that our folks had been waiting for so long that we couldn't wait another day to open up applications for Hurricane Florence. So I want to talk a little bit about how we did that. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So in recognition of the pandemic and of the fact that it would not be prudent to have folks walking into our centers to apply for these funds, we developed an online application. We developed our own call center, which received over 10,000 calls immediately. And we developed a remote intake plan to allow for our specialists to take applications over the phone. We recognize that not everyone has internet access or feels comfortable submitting documents over the internet, so we wanted to be able to take applications over the phone. We also established all of our protocols and waivers to ensure that applicant service could continue. And we grew our contracting partners from about 100 to over 250 so that we could still get out there, still do the construction, and do it in a safe way. We also did a 30-day mandatory remote training before we launched the Florence program so that everyone was familiar with every single part of this program. Next slide, please. And still, we needed to make sure that we could connect with the folks who needed to apply to us, who needed the assistance. And we did open the assistance up to either Hurricane Matthew or Hurricane Florence survivors in recognition of the fact that a lot of folks did not apply after Hurricane Matthew and should have. And about 53% of our Hurricane Matthew applicants were dual impacted by Hurricane Florence. So we wanted to open the door very wide in order to provide a chance for those Hurricane Matthew survivors to come back into the program, as well as opening up to Hurricane Florence. So you can see here some of the efforts that we made to get folks into our program. We emailed 24,000 STEP recipients. We did 11 rounds of emails to get those 24,000 out. We did outbound phone calls and postcards like the one you see on the right. And we are tracking how many submissions, how many applications came in from those efforts. So we emailed the FEMA Florence list, the FEMA Matthew lists, and you see that we got a decent number of applications just by doing increased outreach to folks that might have forgotten about the program, not have heard of the program, or might be skeptical. So you can see that we have also sent 4,579 emails and 752 text messages to individuals that we could see started their application but did not finish it. And that has led to 200 new applications being submitted. So we're working hard to get the word out to everyone who was affected. The application period does remain open, so it is not too late. If you know of folks who had damage and have not applied yet, they are always welcome to apply to the program. Next slide, please. So I won't go through this thoroughly. This is the report that we give to the governor every week, part of the report. It's quite a lengthy report, but this is part of how we're tracking everything. So between Matthew and Florence, there are 8 steps to go from application to closeout. And that one of those steps, one of those most important steps, is construction. So you can see in the lighter blue colors, we've got the homeowner recovery program, which is what we're calling the second phase. And so most of those folks are working through those first steps that we opened last June. And then the darker blue are the folks that were originally in the Matthew program who are largely working through the contracting and construction process or are complete. So next slide, please. And then you'll see we track construction very carefully. So we have 40 applications that are currently being awarded to contractors, 238 homes that are in construction for a value of $21 million. And construction is complete on 586 homes for a value of almost $40 million. So at the moment, in some form of construction, either contractor awarded or complete, there are 864 homes in this process for a value of $63 million. Next slide, please. I wanted to give you a couple of examples of what this looks like. So what we are, of course, serving folks who are low and moderate income. And so when we go to their homes, most of which were damaged in Matthew and or Florence, the homes are not in good shape and they are not properly elevated. We know this from, you know this from everything that you've seen. This storm hit the most vulnerable folks the hardest. Both storms hit the most vulnerable folks the hardest. And so you see the home, this home in Bertie County, this is emblematic of what we see all over Eastern North Carolina. A home that is not a safe place to be. And then you see the construction that we're able to do where we're able to properly elevate the home and offer the homeowner a range of options, of floor plans, so that they can choose the one that best fits their family. Next slide, please. Just another example from Bladen County, a home that is not habitable, and turning that into a handicap accessible, beautiful home that a family can be proud of and in which they can start to live their lives again and to start out on a better foot. So that concludes the hurricane recovery part of the presentation. I'll now move, if we could go to the next slide, to our newest program, the HOPE program, Housing Opportunities and Prevention of Evictions. So next slide. I will say with Director Sprayberry's support and the Secretary's support, we raised our hands last summer when we saw that the eviction crisis was coming. And the HOPE program was created because the governor recognized that that potential evictions were going to have a devastating impact on North Carolinians and were going to spread the virus. So in an effort to keep people in their homes and to keep the viral spread low, he asked NCORE to create a fast and efficient program to speed assistance to vulnerable populations. And again, we had complete support from the director and from the department to do this. It's a massive new undertaking. We didn't quite know at the beginning how massive of an undertaking it would be. But because the economic hardships caused by the pandemic were leading to housing instability, we did this with flexible federal funds from 2 federal agencies, HUD and Treasury. And we served all 100 counties. So in order to be eligible for those funds, you had to be make less than 80% of the area median income, and you had to prove that you had a coronavirus financial impact. You had to be delinquent on rent or utilities or both. And in this program, we make payments directly to the landlords and or the utilities. We do not make payments to the tenants. So we are making sure that the funding goes to where it is owed. And right now we are completing that first round of the HOPE program and planning for the second phase because subsequent stimulus bills have funded a formal program across the country. So we were one of the first states to have a program that we created out of whole cloth. The Treasury Department noticed that and noticed that several other states were doing the same thing. And so they've codified a program that we are now preparing to launch. You can see on the right side of the screen where our applicants came from. Our applications opened on October 15th. By November 11th, we were out of money. And so we had 40,000 calls. These are the eligible applicants. We had more calls than that, but these are the eligible applicants. And you can see that 20,000 of them were seeking both rent and assistance. About 9,000 of them were seeking rent only, and 11,000 of them were seeking utilities only. And you can see from the chart at the top where they were calling from mostly, about half from our metro areas and about half from the rest of the state. Next slide, please. So you can see on this page that we have sent out award letters. So if you apply and you are deemed eligible, you get an award letter. And so we've sent out award letters in the amount of almost $136 million. We have sent out almost 56,000 awards, and that can be a rent award and a water award, or a water award and a gas award. So each family can receive more than one award. But if you want to think about it in terms of families, the right way to think about it is 36,546 families have received some form of assistance. And again, that could be one award for rent or one award for water, or it could be a combination of awards across utilities and rent. And so we have paid of that $135 million, $109 million, and we're at 80% of those awards paid. This is a federal program, so it does have strings attached. So once we've made the award to the applicant, they have to provide us with a lot of information, and the landlord has to apply to provide us with a lot of information. So some of this is a back and forth between the agency and the applicants to make sure that we have all of our T's crossed, our I's dotted, that we are completely compliant, and that folks are giving us all the information that we need in order to make the payment to them. Next slide, please. So as I said, the federal government included funds in a formal eviction prevention program in Treasury in the stimulus bill from December, and then further in the American Rescue Plan, a stimulus bill earlier this spring. So we are now officially planning for the next round of HOPE assistance. And it does contain a few different requirements from the first program, but we are adapting to those requirements. Counties and municipalities with more than a 200,000 population received direct allocations. So our larger communities will be running their own program, and NCORE will be running the program for the balance of the state. So if you live in Buncombe, if you live in Forsyth or Guilford, you are going to run your own program, and those programs are in process as well. As well, 5 tribal communities received their own allocation. So if you are a member of those tribal communities, you are served by those funds, not by the NCORE funds. So there's a lot of communicating and a lot of coordination going on amongst these programs. So we will open our intake in the coming weeks, and we will, again, because of the pandemic, do an online application. But we do have a dedicated call center to help answer questions, to make outbound calls. We will have Spanish-speaking operators on the phone, and we will do a lot of outreach to rural and suburban counties. So we're partnering with our community action agencies, community health care workers, local health and social services agencies, so that we can get the information to those folks who need it the most marginalized communities. We are limiting participation at this point to those that are below 50% of area median income, because as I said in the first program, we were limiting to 80% of area median income. When we ran the numbers, 91% of our applicants were below 50%. So we were serving the neediest of the needy. So here are the eligibility, next slide, the eligibility requirements for this next round. You have to attest to an impact from COVID-19. You have to provide your lease and or utility bills. Again, your income must be at or below 50% of area median income. As I said, that was a marker that we noticed in the first round of the program. You have to have been late on rent sometime since April 1st, 2020, or been faced with homelessness or possible eviction. And we can provide up to 12 months of assistance. So if you received funds from the first round of the HOPE program, that does count against that 12 months. We can do up to 9 months of back owed rent and up to 3 months of future looking rent. And then subject to availability, you can reapply after 3 months if you still have that need and if you can still prove that need. So I've run through a lot of information. Next slide, please. And I'll leave you with that, but I am very happy to answer any questions now or as a follow-up. My email is here, and I'm very happy to be of service and to let you know anything that you need to know. We will be communicating widely about the HOPE program very shortly, so expect some more information on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Laura. Do any commissioners have any questions for Chief Operating Officer Hogshead?
Vice Chair, I don't have any questions, but I want to take this opportunity to, again, thank Laura for her extraordinary leadership, as well as you. For the commissioners and for those at large, you may not know that, it was a blessing that the legislature and the governor saw fit to establish the Office of NCORE within the Department of Public Safety. But we had to build this airplane while we were flying it. And it couldn't have been done without the energy and expertise that we had on the ground here with Director Sprayberry, and then bringing an extraordinary person and leader with deep programmatic knowledge in with HUD, with Laura. They have excelled in both building this airplane, flying it, getting the programs up and running, overcoming any challenges that they've had. And then too, in the true spirit of the leadership that they have, Laura and them did volunteer to take on the HOPE program as well. And so while we're still building and flying this airplane, they added extra equipment on it to make us more effective. Again, adding to their continued legacy of service and sacrifice so that all of North Carolina could benefit and reap the benefits for a more resilient North Carolina, to improve and repair lives that have been broken by a number of storms and this pandemic. And so I just want to take this opportunity to point that out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. That means a great deal to us. And I just want to point out to all the commissioners, that was a very powerful statement that Mr. Secretary just shared with us. And, you know, but I would say that the credit, Laura and her team, I just want to say that as you look at these programs, they are provided guidelines and they have to develop all of the policies and the rules on how we execute these programs inside the state. And so that, in other words, they're building the programs from scratch. And so, so proud of them and so proud for them to be my teammates. So thank you very much. All right. We'll now move to CERC Agents Association and agency reports. And first up, we have the Department of Environmental Quality with Deputy Secretary Nicholson. Commissioner, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Good morning, Chairman Hooks, Vice Chair Sprayberry, and fellow commissioners and CERT members. It's been a couple years since we've had a chance to give you a DEQ update. But before I jump in, just listening to the presentations this morning, I think it's, I know myself, I take the actions of Department of Public Safety, Emergency Management, the Guard, DHHS. I take it for granted because, you know, we're close partners, you know, and we're with you all the time and know what you're capable of. But this COVID response, our hat is definitely off. You know, I will say thank you from the Department of Environmental Quality. You all have been national leaders, and we profit and maintain our health by your actions. So thank you. So again, it's been a couple of years since we've had a chance to present. I'm going to do a little bit of backup on a couple of the big issues that we were tackling last time we talked to the commission, and then I'll bring us forward with some of the current actions and future actions. I'm going to start with a Gen X update. That was a hot topic back the last time that we got to talk. And as a refresher, DEQ entered into a consent order with Chemours, and that order in particular was a comprehensive resolution regarding the per and polyfluoroalkyl substance, PFAS. I'll keep mentioning PFAS as I go here. Contamination originating from the Chemours Fayetteville Works facility. And that special order by consent includes specific conditions to ensure protection of human health and the environment. That order required Chemours to dramatically reduce the Gen X air emissions, provide permanent replacement drinking water supplies, and pay a $12 million civil penalty and a $1 million penalty for investigative costs. The current update on Chemours is it requires constant monitoring and a good portion of the department's resources to stay on top as they execute through the requirements of the consent order. Just on March 31st, we issued a combined civil penalty assessment of almost $200,000 for their failure to meet the conditions of the consent order. So as with everything with the environment and everything that I think all of us do, we know that it's constant monitoring and compliance on so many of these programs. Staying on the PFAS front, we have expanded our investigation into PFAS into the Upper Cape Fear, in particular the areas of Greensboro and Reidsville, to address compliance issues and community concerns. We're also working closely with DoD. Previously, I'd mentioned some efforts at Marine Corps Outline Landfill Atlantic and Cherry Point. In January, unfortunately, we were notified that Marine Corps Outline Landing Field Camp Davis has a high concentration of PFAS, 14,000 parts per trillion, which is extremely high. The good news is it is not, we have not found it in any drinking water wells at this point in time, so that's a positive. But our federal remediation branch is working with Camp Lejeune proper, with Navy NAVFAC, as well as with the town of Holly Ridge to work on that site remediation and informing the public. I think we're all aware that most of these source of these compounds we see at the DoD facilities relate to firefighting foam, and I have it on good accord that this issue will be coming to the forefront via EPA and DoD in the coming years here. We also continue to address emerging compounds of concerns in addition to PFAS that include elements like 1,4-dioxane discharges. Right now, we're working one in the Pittsboro area here. The other big item that I had mentioned in our last meeting that came to fruition, and Vice Chairman Sprayberry, you had asked me some specific questions on it, was it has to do with coal ash. And in February of last year, we entered into a special order by consent for the excavation of more than 800 million tons of coal ash. That is the largest coal ash cleanup in the history of the nation, and will result in more excavation than our 4 neighboring states combined. I won't go into all the details of that particular order. It's moving along fine. I think all of us in the community know that anytime we have a significant rain or weather event, that we have to pay real close attention to these various power plant coal ash sites. Shucks, the hard rain here a couple months back, put HF Lee under some water, and we had some damage there. So it's a constant work with us on working with Duke Energy and coal ash. On the closer in front, many of you may be aware of the Colonial Pipeline Huntersville spill. We were notified of that this past August. Use an artillery term that Director Sprayberry will get here. Colonial Pipeline's creeping onto target on this one. The initial numbers that we were told were in the 32 to 64 thousand gallons range. We're up to 1.2 million today. Unfortunately, we received news from Colonial yesterday that their model's reflecting that the spill is larger than that initial estimate. We don't have a new number. Like everything, I'm sounding like a broken record. We're having to stay on top of Colonial to get good data, and based upon what we learned from them yesterday, we're working on some more enforcement actions that we believe we need to take with that. We also recently had pop up down in the Charlotte and Union, Mecklenburg County part of the state, a number of odor complaints that appear to be emanating from a site in South Carolina, New Indy Containerboard Facility. Lot of reported odor and impacts on our North Carolina residents, getting sick from the odor, headaches, dizziness, and some claiming their families have temporarily relocated to get away. We're working closely with South Carolina DHEC and EPA Region 4. We know Region 4 is coming in to do some monitoring. They're actually there yesterday. So you'll hear more from us on that front as that moves forward. It's an interesting challenge doing cross-border operations with our partners. On the future front, we are very fortunate that the governor's budget addressed some of the issues that would be of interest to the CERC. In particular, the governor supported our request to improve resourcing and the operational authority of our Marine Patrol. We have quite an aging group of equipment that Marine Patrol really needs help with. As you all know, as public safety officials, it's dangerous to be out in old gear. And we also have to have the ability to protect our fisheries and public safety. Governor's budget also recommended state appropriations for some dam safety programs that have been substantially cut in the past. We're optimistic on that. We're asking for reoccurring funding for staffing and operating costs for our EAP program. of 4 additional staff. And we've also asked for the establishment of a dam safety emergency fund to enable our division of energy, mineral, and land resources to act to breach or repair dams during emergencies and seek reimbursement that would be a helpful tool for the safety, health, welfare of life and property. We all know that the dams pop up all over. Additionally, the same request we have in for 4 additional FTEs and increased operating budget is for our landslide mapping program that we have going on out in the western part of the state. A little on resiliency. Not going too far back, current ops. We recently began the removal of abandoned vessels stranded by Hurricane Florence in Brunswick County, using the Division of Coastal Management's U.S. Department of Agriculture Emergency Watershed Protection grant funding. We received approximately $1.8 million of funding from this program and matched it with about $500,000 from state funds to address the large marine debris, lumber, remaining stranded vessels that were a result of Hurricane Florence. To date, in partnership with North Carolina Coastal.
Sir, we can't hear you anymore.
Thank you, Mike. I hit my button. But we have 25 vessels slated for removal in Pamlico, Carteret, Craven, Onslow, Pender, New Hanover, and Hanover counties on this project. We also continue to work closely with Wildlife Resource Commission and Coastal Federation on just the topic of abandoned vessels in general. We're continuing our work in coordination with the Corps of Engineers, Emergency Management, DOT, and others on the Corps' Three River Basin studies and the tar, PAM, noose, and lumber. And in February, we kicked off our Resilient Coastal Communities program that's managed by our Division of Coastal Management, but that was developed closely with the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency, North Carolina Sea Grant, and the Nature Conservancy. And that program is designed to issue grants to 25 coastal communities to provide funding and technical assistance to increase coastal community resilience to common hazards such as flooding and storms. So that program just kicked off. And then to wrap up, let me find my notes here. We've had a few leadership changes within the department in the past couple months, and they're significant changes. Secretary Michael Regan was nominated by President Biden to become the new administrator for US EPA. He assumed that role on 11 March, and he was succeeded by Secretary Dion Delegati on 1 March. Secretary Delegati looks forward to coming to a future commission meeting and introducing herself. We also had our Assistant Secretary for the Environment, Sheila Holman. Sheila retires effective 1 May. That's a huge loss for the department, but she's succeeded by a very capable person, Ms. Sushma Macemore. Many of you may know Sushma from her work on leading the Clean Energy Plan and the Risk and Resiliency, Climate Risk and Resiliency Plan effort under EO 80. We're also losing our Director of Water Infrastructure, Kim Colson. He retires on 1 May. We're interviewing for his replacement right now. We lost our Director of Marine Fisheries, Steve Murphy, on 1 February, and I'm waiting for OSHR to give me the high sign to bring on his replacement, where Steve oversees Marine Patrol. That's would be of interest to this group. And then finally, Rick Wooten, our senior geologist for geohazards and engineering geology, who heads our landslide mapping effort, also retires on 1 May. So we've lost some really key players within the division, but I do think we have a good replacement plan in place and stand by to continue to work and support the efforts of the CERC and the CERT and all the other players. So, pending any questions, sir, that is my update.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for Commissioner Nicholson? Right. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your leadership. We'll now go to North Carolina Emergency Management Association with Commissioner Yossi. Karen, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Secretary Hooks, Director Sprayberry, and fellow commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to highlight some programs and actions as your colleagues in emergency management dedicate their time to improving operations during crisis and disaster in North Carolina. The first of the programs I want to talk about is the North Carolina Animal Emergency Response Working Group, which is a collaborative effort of local and state partners who are dedicated to enhancing the preparedness and response capabilities for incidents involving animals, including livestock throughout the state, and coordination across many sectors. This working group was established to assist with awareness of animal-related incidents, resource identification, communications of incidents at the local, regional, and state level, and to train emergency response personnel at the county level. Priorities of this mission are responder and public safety, humane and timely assistance of animals involved in an emergency, establishing animal sheltering capabilities, ensuring appropriate trainings are available, and conducting public outreach. The areas of focus are in solidifying notification processes, scene arrival and assessment, containment and security of the scene, triage, extrication and relocation of animals, mortality management, humane population if it's deemed necessary, and debriefing of the incident. Participating agencies include North Carolina Emergency Management, Department of Agriculture, the North Carolina Cattlemen's Association, Winston-Salem Forsyth County Emergency Management, New Hanover County Emergency Management, Piedmont Emergency Animal Response Team, Forsyth County Cooperative Extension, Wake County Animal Services, Avery Mitchell County's Cooperative Extension, Granville County Animal Management, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department Animal Care and Control. If you're interested in participating with this working group, I'm going to ask that you contact Dr. Michelle Boucher with the Department of Agriculture or Michelle Brock with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Emergency Management. The next topic I want to highlight focuses on the upcoming hurricane season, and as a reminder that in the midst of ongoing COVID response operations, natural disasters continue to happen. And perhaps it's sobering to remember that today is the 10th anniversary of the largest single-day outbreak of tornadoes in North Carolina, with 30 confirmed tornadoes, 24 fatalities, and several hundred injuries, and an untold number of houses were damaged. Local and state emergency managers know that natural disasters such as flooding, hurricanes, and tornadoes in North Carolina are increasing in occurrence, and with that comes the increased need for opening shelters. We also know that this increase stresses family financial and emotional stability, which is exacerbated in congregate care settings, even without the pandemic concerns that we now have, and even more so in concurrent disasters. One of the most complex situations seen in disasters in the past few years in North Carolina is that of meeting the mental health needs in shelters and making sure.
You're muted.
Sorry, I wanted to make Mr. Nicholson feel better. As an EM, it's an enormous challenge during a disaster response when you're focused on search and rescue, transportation, responder safety, to start coordinating food, water, and finding safe buildings for people to sleep in. To also remember to plan for and include resources to meet a variety of disabilities and mental health needs. In North Carolina, I'm proud that we have a state shelter task force to address planning for the many concerns around sheltering in our state. One of the work groups of that task force is the mental health work group that incorporates local and state emergency management, boots on the ground mental health practitioners, mental health disaster integration and disaster disability integration specialists, state social services leaders, and representatives from nonprofits and local management entities or managed care organizations. I think one of the things that we have realized during our discussions is that we all do not speak the same language, use the same acronyms, or understand how resources are requested in North Carolina during disasters. But the work group continues to work through differences to improve sheltering in North Carolina. The first two topics I've highlighted speak to partnerships in North Carolina. Partnerships are important, and I've long believed that a solid emergency management program is 95% relationship building and 5% heavy lifting. One of the things that we're particularly proud of in North Carolina Emergency Management is our North Carolina Emergency Management Academy, which is designed to provide the initial knowledge and skills needed to perform duties in an emergency management position in this state. Topics include concepts in leadership, doctrine, legal authorities, policies, practices, emergency management principles, agency administration, emergency and disaster response, people management, communications, and technology. The course focuses entirely on North Carolina as it relates to local, state, federal, and private emergency management relationships and operations. I ask you to share about the Academy with your staff. I encourage fire and rescue chiefs, EMS administrators, and hazmat team leaders to attend. The Academy focuses on the relationships that will make leading operations, working with emergency management, and requesting resources easier during a crisis. We could not have this Academy without the partnership of North Carolina Emergency Management and North Carolina Community Colleges. Director Sprayberry, thank you for allowing me to highlight a few North Carolina Emergency Management Association supported programs today. And that ends my report, pending any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Yossi, and always a pleasure, ma'am. All right, we'll now move on to North Carolina Community Colleges. Commissioner Weatherington.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the time to speak with you. And I think I have my camera facing the wrong way. I apologize. Let's try that one. There you go. Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Y'all are happy to see my beautiful face this morning. Thank you. So on behalf of Mr. Thomas Stitt III, all of the staff at our community college system office, and all of the administrations, faculty, and staff at our 58 great community colleges across the state, we bring the commission greetings this morning. Mr. Thomas Stitt III joined us in January of this year as our 10th president of our community college system. Most recently, prior to coming to us, he had served as the U.S. Small Business Administration District Director for North Carolina and led the federal agency response to COVID-19 in North Carolina, bringing approximately $16 billion to support small businesses in North Carolina. And we're very excited to have Mr. Stitt join us as our leader and take over the helm of the ship after the departure of President Hans, who went to the UNC system. During COVID, certainly our colleges, just as everyone was, were drastically affected. And our colleges really had to turn on a dime to continue to provide educational opportunities for all of our students. Most of our training was able to quickly be moved to online formats so that we could continue the educational process. Specifically in public safety, a lot of our public safety programs could not be delivered online. And so our colleges really had to work hard to identify safe ways to continue to provide that training for our frontline responders and to continue to fill the pipeline of needed resources moving forward during the COVID response specifically. So we are very appreciative of all of our colleges, of our public safety school directors, our administrators who managed to find safe ways for us to continue to meet the need of our citizens of our state. As we move forward with COVID, most of our colleges are currently, including our system office, are currently moving to a phased-in return to our campuses and our offices. The vaccinations will be a huge part of that process of getting our folks back into our buildings as well as our students. But our colleges are taking extreme caution that we move forward safely and cautiously for the protection of everyone involved. We certainly want to express all of our appreciation, especially in the public safety arena and our allied health arena, to all of our heroes who've continued to protect us all during the COVID, continue to do so even moving forward, as they've always done in the past. We certainly are appreciative of that. Just a few non-related updates. The State Board of Community Colleges over the past 6 months or so had allocated approximately $162,000 to support some training opportunities in our law enforcement community. Most of that money was centered around developing training around issues such as verbal de-escalation, management training for toxic officers, improving community relations, and best practices for administration and the processes of recruitment and hiring. We have several programs that are now out to the public use through the college system. Train the trainer programs were held at numerous locations across the state, so those programs could be delivered at all of our local levels across our great state. So we're appreciative of that effort on behalf of our state board. As everybody right now, we're currently working with legislature. We have multiple bills on the table that we work daily with them. Look forward to a great year to continue to support our educational needs across the state through our legislators. We'll let you know that approximately a year ago, all public safety programs at the state level at our system office, all public safety programs, including continuing education programs and curriculum programs, have now been moved under our public safety division. So now we have specific subject matter experts that are managing all of the programs in fire, emergency management, anything related to law enforcement, criminal justice, as well as EMS. So we're very excited to consolidate that under one roof, and hopefully that will help us improve all of those programs moving forward. As a system moving forward, we already know that due to what we've all had to endure during the past year, our state certainly economically has a lot of challenges, and we recognize our necessary part in ensuring that we have continually improving educational opportunities for our students, especially as we try to rebuild our economy and make sure that we're on the forefront of providing those opportunities for our students to be prepared to drive our state's economic workforce. And that certainly includes our public safety discipline. And we continue to stand ready in our public safety divisions to ensure that all of our students are ready to work and ready to respond. So that's just a brief update. Certainly stand ready for any questions that you may have today, Mr. Director. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Commissioner Weatherington? Right. We'll next move to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. Director Schermeyer is not available, but we're very fortunate today to have Deputy Director Gerald Thomas to report out for the SBI. Sir, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. Good morning, all. And Director Schermeyer is on the call. He's just out of state at an airport. If you have specific questions, he may be able to take those. I'm going to cover a few things for him. I'll be brief. Brian Neal from the Fusion Center will go a little more in depth about some of these things, but our last quarter activity since the last meeting was primarily dealing with civil unrest related to COVID, the reopening of businesses and the reopening of schools. As far as law enforcement related to COVID, defunding police agencies, officer-involved shootings, use of force, those types of investigations, we continue to monitor and push that information out to our partners. Currently, we're monitoring the Chauvin trial, possible civil unrest in North Carolina and throughout the country as that continues to transpire. Other officer-involved shootings, law enforcement, use of force cases throughout the country. There's a couple events today. Brian will talk about those more specifically. We suspect more of those will spring up around the state. And lastly, school safety, our anticipated increase in our beta cases, the referrals due to most of the public schools reopening. We've kind of had a lull in some of those since COVID. We do expect an uptake in those. That's my brief. Again, Sac Neal will have a little further on some of the intelligence and Fusion Center side. Pending any questions for me or perhaps Director Schermeyer.
Any questions from anyone? Sac Neal, anything to add, sir?
Yes, sir. I'll add that there's several situations that are ongoing that occurred last night and then yesterday, and we'll be working through those right now, contacting our partners in other states and trying to get a report to Secretary Hooks as soon as possible.
Roger, and thanks, sir. All right, this time I'd like to turn it over to the chairman, Secretary Eric A. Hooks, for comments he may have.
Thank you, Mike. Mike carries many titles: Executive Director, cert leader, vice chair, and all of those, and he wears them extremely well. Colleagues, I do want to keep us mindful that April is Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. And to that end, we kicked off the month with our heart training program, and thank so many of you who were able to participate, a few in person, but so many more via live stream with our heart program. That was our inaugural heart program, helping enhance autism response training. I have much gratitude for Chief Deputy Secretary Hoekstra for both her organizing and planning that, and also sharing her personal story with autism and her family and her son. And it was quite the event, with Dennis DeBalt coming from Florida to offer those insights for all of us, so that we can be aware of this special population, and so that we can learn to interact more effectively and serve the people in North Carolina. And as always, you have certainly noted, because I have a myriad of duties, that our vice chair often takes lead in these meetings, as well as he should, because I couldn't ask for a better partner to do so. And Mike is one of those leaders that I can always turn to and give anything or dump anything on him. And he's always ready to stand tall. And I'm undeniably proud of our vice chair and our Deputy Homeland Security Advisor for North Carolina, who's been a true partner and advisor to me and a leader in our public safety mission. And so I just want to salute Mike for all that he does. He has been an extraordinary leader with bandwidth that is tremendously wide, and a deep level of compassion and expertise for all that he touches. And Mike, I'm going to again lean to you, but I wanted to make sure that I took the time to publicly recognize you in such a way with this group of colleagues. And Mike's going to close us out today. Mike.
Thank you, sir. And and I appreciate those kind words. You'll never know how much. So, commissioners, at this time, the chairman, Secretary Eric A. Hooks, has graciously allowed me to take this opportunity to make a formal announcement. I'm very honored to make this announcement with this august body of partners, professionals, and friends. I'm very pleased and excited to tell you that I'm going to be retiring after 42 years of state service on August the 1st, 2021. Thanks to the chairman and all of you, the CERC is stronger than it's ever been, and I couldn't be more proud of my teams at Emergency Management and NCORE. No successor's been named as of this date, but you can rest assured that the Secretary is going to choose somebody that's going to take us to the next level. This is the perfect forum to share this decision. I wanted to thank all of you for the fantastic support and selfless service you provided and continue to provide to the great state of North Carolina. I especially want to thank my outstanding secretary, and you notice I said mine, who has provided me with his phenomenal support and trust each and every day. I want y'all to know that he takes every bit of this job seriously. He takes all of his responsibilities seriously, and he's got a lot of responsibilities, I can tell you that. So, boss, I just want to tell you thanks so much for everything that you do. You've really been a mentor to me. You've been a great boss, and if I may be so bold, you've been a great friend. And so with that, I'm going to take us to adjournment. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to go through the roll call again, as the lawyers tell me I have to do now. So first, I need to ask, to have a motion to adjourn.
So made, Rossborough.
Do I have a second?
Second, Yelsey.
Okay, so I'm going to go through here. So I need to know if you're going to give me an aye or a nay. So Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Buffalo.
Aye.
Commissioner Bulla.
Aye, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you. Commissioner Combs.
Aye.
Commissioner Dance.
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Secretary Hooks.
Aye on the adjournment, nay on your losing an impact on all of us for the rest of our lives, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Howard.
Aye, and ditto.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hunt.
Aye, and I concur with Secretary Hooks.
Thank you, General. Commissioner Johnson.
Aye, and thank you for your years of service, Mike.
Thank you, Chief. It's good to see you the other day. Commissioner Julian.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner, okay, McGraw, Emily, or is the new one sitting in today?
I'm not sure, but on behalf of our chief engineer and our commissioner, we wish you the absolute best in your new chapter in life, and aye on adjournment.
Thanks, Emily. Appreciate you, ma'am. Commissioner McCormick.
Congratulations, Mike. Aye.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye, congratulations, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Nicholson.
Mike, I second Secretary Hooks's motion, but aye on adjournment and good luck, my friend.
Thank you. Semper Fi, sir.
Hoorah.
Commissioner Schermeyer.
Aye, sir, and men and women of the SBI congratulate you, Mike. Sorry, Gerald. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Gerald, too. Thank you, Director. All right, and I say aye. Commissioner Staley.
Aye, and thank you and congratulations, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Taylor.
Aye, and congratulations, Director. North Carolina is losing a true general and gentleman that has navigated us through many disasters. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Chief. Much appreciated. Commissioner Thompson.
Aye, and Mike, fair winds and following seas. You will be missed dearly.
Thank you, ma'am. Semper Fi. Commissioner Weatherington.
Yes, sir. I believe if Secretary Hooks and I work together, we can find a way to delay your retirement paperwork. But on the motion, I'll vote aye.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Yossi. Karen.
So congratulations to your wife. You will be greatly, greatly missed in the emergency management world here in North Carolina. Aye to adjournment.
Okay, thank you. I think the motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Everybody have a wonderful Friday, a wonderful weekend, and God bless. North Carolina State EOC out.